History often begins in silence. A name carved into stone, a date barely noticed, a legacy buried beneath generations. When one digs into the past of American wealth and power, the name John Jacob Astor IV inevitably surfaces, etched not only into marble headstones and hotel facades, but into the foundations of modern America. Born on July 13, 1864, at the Ferncliff Estate in Rhinebeck, New York, Astor entered the world already wrapped in legend. He was not merely born into wealth, he was born into expectation. The Astor fortune had been built by fur, land, and relentless ambition, stretching back to his great-grandfather, the original John Jacob Astor. To dig into this lineage is to uncover the roots of American capitalism itself. Yet historical digging reveals contradictions. Despite privilege, Astor grew up awkward, frequently ridiculed by newspapers and society elites. The cruel nickname Jack Astor followed him, suggesting that inheritance alone could not buy respect. Beneath the silk and silver of Gilded Age America, we find a young man struggling to define himself beyond his surname. Education at St. Paul's School and Harvard polished his intellect, but did not shape his destiny entirely. Instead, private curiosity guided him. As we dig deeper into letters, inventions, and writings, we discover a man drawn to science, mechanics, and the future, an unusual passion for an heir expected only to manage land and collect rents. Family records reveal complex alliances: Astors, Livingstons, Schermerhorns, Roosevelts, names that shaped politics, society, and finance. Yet feuds fractured this powerful network. The bitter conflict between Astor's mother and his cousin William Waldorf Astor split the family and forced exile to England. These internal wars remind us that even dynasties fracture from within. Digging the past shows us something vital. John Jacob Astor IV was not simply rich. He was restless, searching, and uneasy within the gilded cage of inheritance. His story begins not as a triumph, but as a quiet question. How does one live meaningfully when everything is already owned? Peeling back another layer of history, we uncover a man determined to leave his own mark. Astor refused to exist only as a custodian of inherited fortune. Real estate was his battlefield, and New York City his canvas. In 1897, he built the Astoria Hotel, an act of rivalry, ambition, and permanence. When it merged with the Waldorf Astoria became a monument to excess, power, and vision. But digging deeper reveals something more surprising. Astor imagined worlds beyond brick and stone. In 1894, he published A Journey in Other Worlds, a science fiction novel set in the year 2000. To historians, this is a startling artifact. While most of his peers looked backward to tradition, Astor imagined space travel and advanced civilizations. This buried literary effort reveals a man fascinated by time itself. Patent records expose yet another layer. Bicycle brakes, turbine concepts, road-improving machines. These were not hobbies. They were expressions of a mind refusing stagnation. Astor sought usefulness, innovation, and progress, even if history later buried these contributions beneath his wealth and death. War files open another chapter. In 1898, during the Spanish-American War, Astor did not remain safely behind desks and donations. He funded artillery, wore uniform, and served in Cuba as a lieutenant colonel. His service earned medals and respect, but more importantly, it revealed character. Digging through military archives shows a man who believed privilege carried obligation. By the early 20th century, financial records confirm Astor as one of the richest men on earth, worth billions by modern standards. Yet even at the peak of wealth, his personal life was unraveling. Divorce, scandal, and gossip would soon overshadow his accomplishments. History reminds us that digging the past is never clean. Every success uncovers conflict. Every triumph casts shadows. Astor's life, examined closely, becomes a study in contradiction. Imagination versus tradition, honor versus excess, permanence versus fragility. As historians dig into newspapers and society columns of the early 1900s, a shift appears. John Jacob Astor IV becomes less a builder and more a headline. His divorce from Ava Lowell Willing in 1909 shocked elite circles, but what followed shook them completely. At 47, Astor announced his marriage to 18-year-old Madeline Force. The age difference ignited outrage. Society whispered, newspapers printed relentlessly, and even Astor's children reacted with bitterness. Digging personal accounts reveals that this was not merely scandal. It was exile. Astor withdrew from American society, choosing travel as escape. Europe and Egypt became hiding places from judgment. Letters and eyewitness accounts suggest a man deeply attached to his young wife, protective, perhaps seeking renewal. Madeline's pregnancy intensified his desire to return home, to legitimacy, to safety. Thus, the decision was made to board the RMS Titanic. Digging maritime records reveals the symbolism. Titanic was not just a ship, it was the embodiment of modern arrogance and confidence. Unsinkable, perfect, eternal. Astor admired it, trusting engineering as he trusted progress. The voyage appeared calm, yet buried within survivor testimony is a haunting calmness. After the iceberg struck, Astor reassured Madeline. He delayed evacuation. He trusted the ship longer than others, perhaps because he trusted systems all his life. History tells us that confidence, once proven wrong, turns fatal. The final excavation lies at the bottom of the Atlantic. Survivor testimonies, recovery logs, and eyewitness accounts piece together Astor's final hours. He did not panic. He did not demand privilege. He placed his pregnant wife into Lifeboat No. 4 and stepped back. When refused entry, Astor complied. He kissed Madeline, asked only for the boat number, and turned toward the doomed ship. Digging deeper into these moments strips away wealth entirely. What remains is a man facing death with composure. Recovery records tell the rest. His body was found days later, identified by sewn initials and personal effects. A diamond ring, cash, cufflinks, and a gold pocket watch. Time carried into the sea. That watch would later resurface, sold for millions, proving how the past resurfaces when dug deeply enough. 4 months later, Madeline gave birth to his son. Astor would live on through legacy, but not memory. When we dig the past of John Jacob Astor IV, we do not find merely a Titanic victim. We find a symbol of an era, confidence undone by reality, wealth humbled by fate, and honor revealed in final moments. History buried him in cold water. Time preserved his story. Digging the past brings it back to the surface.